Okay. Now let's do a little bit of blast from the past and judge people for the decisions that they made. Now, hindsight being 2020, and how bad they were.
Yes, us, the Detroit Lions fans, are going to sit here and judge and mock other franchises for their
horrible draft day decisions.
Yep. Okay,
because obviously, I mean, we've never done anything wrong.
No, of course not.
Always have the best drafts.
Brandon Pettigrew was slam dunk with it.
So we're looking at teams that traded up to get a certain player that they really wanted. What they gave up for him, and then how that player's career with that team ended up panning out.
Yeah, we kind of talked about at the top of the show. The idea with this topic this week was that the fringe of the big San Francisco trade to presumably go get their next franchise quarterback or franchise player at 3, whoever it ends up being. We thought it'd be fun to look back at some of these infamously terrible decisions to do the exact same thing and give up a ton of resources to move up and go get their guy.
Yeah. So let's talk about my personal favorite, Mitch Trubisky. The Chicago Bears, who had the 3rd overall pick, trade to the 49ers the 3rd overall pick, the 67th overall pick, the 111th overall pick, and then I believe, I can't read my chicken scratch writing, a future first rounder, which ended up being 10th, I think. A future pick.
Future high pick.
Yeah. All the move up to number 2 to draft Mitch Trubisky. Looking back now, this trade still makes 0 sense.
You know what the craziest thing about this trade is? That Ryan Pace, the GM who made that trade, is still the GM of the Bears. Still.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a meme at this point. It's a meme that they passed on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson to take Mitch Trubisky, who there was a lot of hype.
Everybody says that they passed on Patrick Mahomes, which they did, but nobody was picking Patrick Mahomes that high. Nobody. The only player that you can truly say they pass up on was Deshaun Watson, because he was the only other quarterback that was supposed to be going that high. Mahomes was always late first rounder.
I remember Trubisky was even in the conversation to be the number 1 pick.
I didn't think anybody was taking Trubisky that high. Everybody was talking about Deshaun Watson.
Because that was the year that the Browns took Myles Garrett, number 1, I believe. So there was talk all the way up until then they were just going to take Mitch Trubisky at 1, and Myles Garrett would have not been the first selection. But, I mean, revisionist history, sure, but it's an epic fail because they could have had 2 quarterbacks who are far better than Mitchell Trubisky. And we kind of touched on this last week when we talked about him signing with Buffalo, that maybe it truly is just an issue of the Bears gave him, nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Maybe he will flourish and have a career here and we'll just be eating all of our words. But I kind of doubt it at this point. It seems pretty unlikely that he's going to pan out as a legit superstar in the NFL. So from that perspective, based on everything else that was available on the board, based on everything they gave up to get him, it was an epic fail.
Yeah. I also have to apologize. I'm now looking at the draft order, and I totally thought Patrick Mahomes went in like 22nd.
He was at 10.
He was 10th.
Yeah.
So,
he went far down.
Retrack everything that I just said, basically.
It wasn't like a second round.
No, I thought he was late first round. I can't believe the Chiefs were even picking that high. They looking back. Oh, they did? It was from Buffalo. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, yeah. And he ended up getting picked before Deshaun Watson, too.
Right.
So now I am like, this was horrible.
Oh, no. That's completely
it just completely changed my perspective. That was terrible.
Especially that this team has desperately been looking for the next franchise QB since I don't even know who Like,
Jay Cutler.
Great. Their last great
Jay Cutler.
Okay, so they're looking for Jay Cutler's epic replacement.
Yeah,
and they failed to get him.
Well, it was their fault for letting him walk.
Number 2 overall pick. They traded all that stuff or they had to trade
everything
to get him, and now he's the backup quarterback in the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. Okay, so one that's kind of pulls on the heartstrings a little bit, tugs on the heartstrings. Was it back in 2012? The Redskins give up the 6th overall pick, the 39th overall pick, a future first rounder, which ended up being the 22nd overall pick, and then another future first rounder, which ended up being the 2nd overall pick, which that one hurts. All this to trade up to number 2, I believe, and draft Robert Griffin III.
Okay, well, looking at it in 2021, obviously it did not.
Hindsight 2020,
But at the time,
it was a great pick.
It was a very good pick for them, and it gave that franchise a lot of much-needed juice.
Yeah.
It was.
He was sensational his rookie year.
That rookie year was pretty unbelievable, and they made the playoffs, and they looked like they had found the next great quarterback for that franchise, and ultimately it kind of got derailed because of injuries and.
Which, if I'm remembering this correctly, which I'm probably not, considering the track record I'm on with this podcast, it is kind of their fault the way his career panned out, because I believe he was pretty injured in that playoff game.
Washington messing up?
Yeah.
No.
And they sent him out to a peak Seattle Seahawks defense. Legion of Boom, and I'm pretty sure he got torn to shreds that game. So kind of their fault for doing that, and it got him more injured, and then after that it was the guy just couldn't stay on the field, and he lost all that juice.
He was unbelievable at Baylor too.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just looking at these trade ups, I guess we're calling it, I don't know what we're calling it, but if we're looking at these moves to move up in the draft, we're judging them. I don't hate that they did this to get him, because it seemed like it was going to work, and it seemed like it was.
And it did work for a season.
It did, and ultimately ended up going off the tracks, and that's unfortunately kind of what happens in the NFL sometimes. But it's not like a Trubisky situation where they had a 9-game sample size or whatever that he played in college. He made one actual full season of football in North Carolina, which is Trubisky.
Yeah,
and they took him number 2 over those other 2 quarterbacks. It's not that kind of situation. The number 1 pick was Andrew Luck. Definitive.
He's
the number 1 pick. He's basically the same as Trevor Lawrence in this draft, seemingly. RG3 was no doubt going to be a star too. So to do what they did, I don't blame them. RG3's kind of had a career since Washington. He's kind of bounced around the league as
a backup.
At Cleveland, he kind of got a shot to see what he could do, but again, injuries just took him off the field, and ultimately didn't work out. But I don't blame them.
Yeah. So our third and final quarterback is the most hilarious one, which we can say the most hilarious because this guy has turned his life around after his whole ordeal happened. But the San Diego Chargers trade the 3rd overall pick, the 33rd overall pick, a future first rounder, which ended up being the 8th overall pick, a wide receiver and a linebacker. I couldn't recognize them by name. So I don't know how good they were. But they do all this, trade up to number 2, and select the most infamous draft bust in NFL history, Ryan Leaf.
I'm not as privy to this era of the NFL as maybe you. I don't know. You might have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this one. All I know about this guy is obviously he's an infamous draft bust. He went,
one of the biggest.
Because Peyton Manning,
and then Ryan Leaf. Yeah.
And I just remember hearing all sorts of, he was the biggest draft bust of all time. He had so many off the field issues. His play was horrible. He was out of the league in a couple years. I mean, I don't know the full story. I'm going to let you kind of fill in the pieces here, but I do know that was an epic fail.
Yeah, Ryan Leaf was, for the time that he played, I think that he was very bad. and he had off the field issues for a little bit. He was not very good in the locker room. I think there are still like clips of him going around, like just getting into it with a reporter. Obviously, you know, like you hold it so heavy because first overall pick was Peyton Manning, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And
true generational.
Yeah, like easily one of the greatest of all time. And then you have Ryan Leaf, who just got, oh, man. I think, I don't know if he was still in the league when this happened or he was out of the league, but he had, I believe, a couple DUIs. And then, you know, now I think they did a 30 for 30 on him. He has turned his life around. He, like, you know, doesn't live with much regret, which is good. Obviously, he threw away like what could have been. But yeah, you know, like, good for him for turning his life around, like actually making something of it instead of just going down as, you know,
taking the Johnny Manziel route.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great way to put it. You know, instead of
I can't believe we still have to watch him. By the way, I still see highlights of him
God,
whatever
in that horrendous football league where it's just not going to last.
But again, we're talking about not really grading, but just whether these moves were worth it or not. And obviously, this one definitely was not.
Yeah, no, definitely not. All right, the fourth one, our first running back, our only running back. The Cleveland Browns trade the fourth overall pick, a fourth rounder, a fifth rounder, and a seventh rounder, I believe, to jump to number 3 to draft Trent Richardson, who was, I believe, a Heisman Trophy winner coming out of Alabama when they were just producing running backs. I mean, still are to this day. Yeah. So an Alabama running back, Heisman Trophy winner, had a great, phenomenal college career.
Same draft year as RG3, I believe. The 2012 draft. I think it went Luck, RG3, Trent Richardson.
It might have, yeah.
It was the same year.
Really, I think, you know, I don't think he had a bad first year.
No, he was good. He was good for like a year and a half. Like, he was a really good player, and it looked like it was going to work out.
And then, like, the wheels just fell off the wagon.
Maybe that's a theme of the 2012 draft class. I saw some post.
You are right. It was that draft, yeah.
Talking about where all the 2012 first round top 10 picks are now, and like
it's pretty bad.
Retired, like out of the league, back up, like not, you know,
top 10. Andrew Luck retired. RG3 back up. Trent Richardson retired. Matt Khalil, which I'm pretty sure he's
been in the league for a while.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah.
Justin Blackman.
He
played 20 games in the NFL. He had a ton of off the field issues.
If the Jaguars had traded up to get him, he could have been on this list.
Yeah. Morris Claiborne, who went to Dallas. I don't know if he's still around. I think he is. Yeah,
he's stuck around.
Mark Barron,
who converted to a linebacker for the Bucs for a couple of years. I remember that, like, or the Rams or something.
Yeah,
had to kind of switch up what he was doing.
Ryan Tannehill.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right. What a career that guy's had.
We talk about this with like Trubisky, though. I mean, Ryan Tannehill goes to the Titans. He's put in the right situation.
Exactly.
And the dude is
what he could have been. Yeah. Or what he can be. 9th overall, Carolina selects a linebacker, the All-American Dream, Luke Kuechly, one of the greatest linebackers of all time, in my opinion. And then Stephon Gilmore at number 10 for Buffalo.
Arguably the number 1
cornerback in the league. In the NFL. Yeah. What a wild top 10 draft that was.
Do a show just on that class.
Yeah.
Trent Richardson, though, he had a very, very brief stint of being a hot, successful player in the league, and infamously was traded to the Indianapolis Colts kind of out of nowhere. It was pretty surprising when it happened. I remember that.
I think he was traded for a first-round pick.
So Cleveland kind of recouped their investment, I guess, and then
in a way,
obviously did not work out.
No, he didn't. If I'm not mistaken, he might hold a record for for like a certain amount of carries having the lowest yards per carry average. He has a 3.3 yards per carry average, which if you're not, too familiar with rushing stats, it's pretty freaking bad.
It's not a trophy you want to have in your house.
No, definitely not. So Trent Richardson definitely goes down as an infamous bust in certain ways.
But in comparison to the guys we covered so far, and our last guy on this list here, at least Cleveland recouped their investment on it with the first round.
Honestly, maybe one of the better ones out of the bunch.
A whiff at number 3, and they probably lost some picks, but overall, they could have got burned worse.
Yeah. All right. Final one. I believe it was Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo in 2013. Or maybe it was 2014. They swap first round picks and then give up a first rounder, a fifth rounder, and a seventh rounder just a first rounder and a fifth rounder for the next year. And they take Sammy Watkins, who the reason they did this, from my understanding, they had just drafted E.J. Manuel the prior year, the next franchise quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, and they needed an offensive fire. They needed some firepower on the offensive side, so they take Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, Buffalo taking him that
didn't
high.
Work out.
Obviously didn't work out. He just recently signed with the Baltimore Ravens, actually, in the offseason, because the Chiefs, I don't know if his contract ended and he just became a free agent or if they cut him.
Yeah, I think so.
He's at least flashed at times. He's never been the guy that was worth the top 10 draft pick or whatever.
Top 5. He went 4th overall.
Yeah, he was never worth that level of draft capital, but he's been proven to be a pretty consistently good receiver in the NFL. I think that you could put a lot of guys above him, especially people that you could draft above him. But
yeah, wide receivers that ended up going after Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans at number 7, Odell at 12, Brandon Cooks, who who cares? Kelvin Benjamin.
Brandon Cooks has probably had a more solid career than Watkins, though, don't you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't fully disagree with that. We can
he's bounced around
dive
quite
in.
A bit.
Yeah,
he's been on quite a few teams at this point, but there's a reason he keeps getting traded for actual significant draft capitals, because he actually is a pretty important piece to wherever he goes offensively. He's always been pretty good. He was on the Patriots, he was on the Saints, the Rams. Now he's in the Texans, so RIP to his career. But
what's so funny is that Sammy Watkins has had roughly the same career, just more yardage, as the 10th pick overall in that draft. You know who that was?
I am going to take a guess here and say that was Eric Ebron.
That was Eric Ebron. The Detroit Lions select him at 10th overall.
His stats are that
bad? So
compared to Ebron,
Ebron has 339 receptions. Watkins has 321. Watkins has 4,665 yards. Ebron has 3,753. And then Watkins has 33 touchdowns. Ebron has 32.
I had
so almost identical except for the yardage.
I thought you were going to say Watkins and Brandon Cook's stats are actually pretty comparable. No, Eric Ebron going with that. Yeah. That is much worse than I thought. Wow. Okay. Definitely not worth 5 draft.
Yeah. It's also, just awesome to note the players that went after Ebron that we could have had. Taylor Lewan, who is a phenomenal tackle. Odell, Aaron Donald, Kyler Fuller, Ryan Shazier, Zach Martin, who's a phenomenal guard. CJ Mosley. The list goes on and on. So
hey, who needs any of those guys?
Yeah. But that recaps, some of the draft busts that we love most.
And who knows? Maybe San Fran will join the list this year.
Yeah, who knows?